I decided to visit my wife at her job as a CEO. At the entrance, there was a sign that said authorized personnel only. When I told the guard I was the CEO's husband, he laughed and said, "Sir, I see her husband every day. There he is coming out right now." So, I decided to play along. "I'm glad to have you here. I never thought a simple surprise visit would shatter everything I believed about my 28-year marriage. My name is Daniel Morgan. I'm 58 years old, and until that Thursday afternoon in October, I thought I knew my wife Olivia better than anyone in the world. It started as an innocent idea. Olivia had been working late again, pulling those endless 12 and 14-hour days that came with being the CEO of Astravion Global. I'd been making dinner for one too many nights, eating alone while she texted updates about board meetings and client emergencies. That morning, she'd rushed out without her usual coffee, and I thought bringing her favorite latte and homemade sandwich might brighten her day. The downtown office tower gleamed in the autumn light as I pulled into the visitor parking lot. I'd only been to Astravion's headquarters a handful of times over the years. Olivia always said it was easier to keep work and home separate, and I respected that boundary, maybe too much. I walked through the revolving glass doors, coffee and brown bag in hand, feeling oddly nervous. The lobby was a cathedral of marble and chrome, the kind of place that swallowed sound and made ordinary men feel temporary. Behind the desk sat a security guard named Marcus. "Good afternoon," I said, smiling. "I'm here to see Olivia Morgan. I'm her husband, Daniel." Marcus looked up from his screen, his professional smile faltering just slightly. "You said you're Mrs. Morgan's husband?" There was hesitation in his tone that instantly tightened my stomach. "Yes," I replied. "I'm Daniel Morgan. I brought her lunch." He blinked, confusion flickering across his face before he did something that froze my blood. He laughed, not a chuckle, but a genuine, bewildered laugh that echoed across the marble. "Sir, I'm sorry, but I see Mrs. Morgan's husband every day. He just left about 10 minutes ago." My grip tightened on the coffee cup. Marcus gestured casually toward the elevators. "There he is now, coming back." I turned and saw a man in a tailored charcoal suit walking through the lobby, younger than me by at least 10 years, confident, polished, the kind of man whose smile could open any door. "Afternoon, Marcus," he said easily. "Olivia asked me to grab those files from the car." "No problem, Mr. Cole," Marcus replied. "She's in her office." Ethan Cole. I knew that name from Olivia's work stories, her COO, the one she mentioned in passing. Ethan this, Ethan that. Always business. My hands went numb. I wanted to speak, to correct this absurd mistake, but my voice had abandoned me. Marcus looked between us. "Sir, are you sure you're Mrs. Morgan's husband? Because Mr. Cole here is married to her." The words hit harder than a punch. Married to her. Not claimed to be, not used to be, but married. Ethan paused mid-stride. Our eyes met. There was no guilt, no panic, just recognition. He knew exactly who I was. "Is there a problem here?" His voice was calm, measured, the tone of a man who handled crises for a living. Every instinct screamed at me to explode, to demand answers, but something colder took over. Years of reading people in my line of work had taught me that silence often terrifies more than noise. "You must be Ethan," I said finally, forcing composure. "Olivia's mentioned you. I'm Daniel, a friend of the family." The lie tasted like ash, but it bought me time. Ethan's shoulders relaxed slightly, though his eyes didn't. Ah, yes. Olivia mentioned you too. Had she? I doubted it. She's in meetings all afternoon, he said smoothly. But I'll make sure she gets whatever you brought. I handed him the coffee and sandwich, my movements mechanical. Should just tell her Daniel stopped by. Of course, he replied, smiling as if nothing had just detonated between us. I walked out of that lobby in a daze. The October air cut through me like glass. By the time I reached my car, the world looked exactly as it had half an hour ago, yet nothing was the same. 28 years of marriage, gone, rewritten in a single laugh from a security guard. I sat in the driver's seat, staring at the tower that still glinted proudly in the sun. My phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. Running late again tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. The words once meant comfort. Now they felt like evidence. I drove home through familiar streets that suddenly felt foreign, parked outside the same red brick house we'd built our life in, and realized I no longer recognized any of it. Inside, the silence wasn't home anymore. It was performance. A stage set built on lies. The photos on the wall, the souvenirs from trips, the little clay bowl she made one summer. They all seemed to mock me. At 9:30, her keys jingled at the door, her heels clicking like clockwork. Daniel, I'm home, she called, voice tired, practiced. She looked perfect, as always. How was your day? I asked. Exhausting. She sighed. Back-to-back meetings. I brought you coffee today, I said. To your office. She froze, just a flicker, a heartbeat. Then she smiled. You did? I didn't get any coffee. I gave it to Ethan to pass along. Another pause. Oh, that must have been it. He mentioned someone stopped by. She poured herself a glass of wine, back turned to me, voice steady. That was sweet of you to think of me. I watched her for a long time, wondering if the steadiness in her hands came from innocence or mastery. After 28 years, I was terrified to learn which one it was. As Olivia slept beside me, her breathing deep and steady, I stared at the ceiling, wondering how many other lies I'd been living with. How many nights had she come home from being Ethan's wife, only to slip seamlessly back into being mine? How long had I been sharing my life with someone who'd been living an entirely different one the moment I wasn't looking? The numbers man in me started calculating. 3 years since Ethan joined Astravian Global. How many late nights? How many business trips? How many times had she said his name casually, conditioning me to think of him as just another colleague, when he was clearly something more? But the questions that haunted me most weren't about evidence. They were about identity. Who was the woman sleeping beside me? And who had I been married to all these years? The next morning arrived with cruel normalcy. Olivia kissed my cheek before leaving for work. The same quick, familiar peck I'd known for decades. She smelled like the perfume I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. Her favorite. Everything about her was exactly as it had always been. Except now, I knew I was kissing a stranger. I called my office and told my assistant I'd be working from home. For the first time in 15 years, I couldn't bear to discuss numbers, tax forms, or quarterly reports. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table, coffee cooling untouched, staring at Olivia's mug in the sink. Had she been thinking of Ethan while drinking from it this morning? By noon, something in me hardened. I began searching through her things, not frantically, but methodically, the way I'd audit a suspicious account. Her home office was clean, documents in order, business cards, letters on Astravian stationery, all perfectly normal for a CEO. until I found a restaurant receipt tucked between folders, a dinner for two, 6 weeks ago, at La Maison du Lac, the same French restaurant where we'd celebrated our anniversary 3 years running. The total, $268.50. That night, she had told me she was dining with a female client from Seattle. The timestamp read 8:15 p.m. We'd spoken on the phone at 9:30. She'd sounded relaxed, even cheerful, telling me the meeting had gone well. There were no appetizers, no desserts, no company-paid liquor, just 2 entrees and a bottle of wine, the kind of meal that belonged to us. My phone rang, her name flashing across the screen. "Hey, honey," she said. "You sounded off this morning." Her voice was gentle, practiced. "Just tired," I replied. "Didn't sleep well." "You should rest," she said. "You've been working too hard lately." I almost laughed. "Actually," I said, "I was thinking about that dinner you had with the client from Seattle, about 6 weeks ago. How did that go?" A pause. Barely a heartbeat, but I noticed. "Oh, that? Didn't pan out. She went with another firm," she said evenly. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious," I said. "You seemed excited about it." "You win some, you lose some." I heard typing in the background. Always multitasking. "I should get back to work, big meeting coming up. See you tonight." See you tonight. The words used to mean something. Now they just felt rehearsed. I spent the afternoon auditing my own life. Credit card statements I'd once ignored now read like confessions. Lunches at places she never mentioned. Gas charges in neighborhoods she never visited. A purchase at a bookstore. $370 on a weekday she claimed to have been in meetings. Olivia hadn't read a book for pleasure in years. Then came the final proof. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen counter. I told myself I was just closing it, but my eyes caught a notification at the corner of the screen. Ethan Cole had sent her a calendar invite. I clicked. Dinner. 7:01 p.m. Tonight. Bellacour, the Italian restaurant where I'd proposed to her 17 years ago. My stomach dropped. I scrolled through her calendar. Lunch with E. Doctor's appointment. Spa weekend. All lies. The pattern was perfect. Surgical. Rehearsed. Tuesday mornings. Coffee with E. Thursdays. Dinner with E. Saturdays. Work. She had built an entire second marriage inside our first. When the garage door opened at 6:15, I closed the laptop and forced my heartbeat to slow. She came in, radiant as ever, wearing the black dress I'd bought her last year. "You're home early," I said. "She's wrapped up faster than expected," she replied, flashing the smile that had fooled me for nearly 3 decades. "Thought maybe we could grab dinner out tonight. Just the 2 of us." The lie was flawless. "Where were you thinking?" I asked. "Maybe that new sushi place, or something spontaneous," she said, checking her phone as she spoke. "Probably texting him. Canceling? Rescheduling? Or taunting me without even knowing it." Then, with perfect timing, she sighed. "Actually, I just remembered. I have a late call with Tokyo. Rain check?" "Of course," I said softly. "You're so understanding, Daniel." She smiled. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Her words slid through me like ice. I watched her climb the stairs, her perfume lingering in the air. Somewhere above, she was probably changing into something more casual. For him, not for me. And as her footsteps faded, I finally understood the cruelest part of betrayal. It's not just the lies. It's how effortlessly they sound like love. She was changing out of the black dress, probably into something more appropriate for her supposed late-night conference call. Or maybe something entirely different for her dinner with Ethan. 20 minutes later, she came down the stairs wearing a navy blouse and tailored slacks. Polished, professional, beautiful. Her hair was touched up, her lipstick freshened, and her perfume hung faintly in the air like an alibi. She looked like a woman preparing for an important evening, not someone settling in for a long phone call with Tokyo. "I'll try not to be too late," she said, kissing my cheek. The same spot she'd kissed that morning. Only now, it felt like a wound disguised as affection. "Take your time," I replied. "I'll probably turn in early." She smiled, gathered her purse, laptop bag, and keys, the same routine I'd watched thousands of times. But tonight it felt different, like I was watching an actress step out of one role and into another. When the door closed behind her, the house didn't feel empty. It felt haunted. Every object around me, the wedding photos, the vacation souvenirs, the framed degree she'd once been so proud of, mocked me with their familiarity. I made a sandwich I didn't eat and turned on the television without seeing a thing. My mind replayed the same unbearable loop. How long had this been going on? And how could I have been so blind? Was I living inside a love story that had quietly turned into fiction? Around 8:30, I found myself driving toward Bellecourt, the restaurant that had once belonged to us. I told myself it was coincidence, that I just needed groceries. But when I saw Olivia's silver Lexus parked beside Ethan's black Mercedes, the last thread of denial snapped clean. They were inside that restaurant now, probably at our old corner table. I pictured her laughing at his jokes, her hand on his wrist, the same gestures she once reserved for me. I drove home through streets that no longer felt familiar, every turn sharper than I remembered. The weight of my new reality pressed against me like cold water filling my lungs. My wife of 28 years was living a double life, not as a moment of weakness, but as a masterpiece of deception. The woman I thought I knew wasn't mine anymore. Maybe she never had been. 3 days later, the truth found me again, this time disguised as chance. I was cleaning the kitchen junk drawer, sorting old receipts and batteries, when my hand brushed a brass key attached to a tag that read, "Lakefront Residences." I didn't recognize it. We owned our house outright. There was no reason for either of us to have an apartment key, especially one from a complex across town. That afternoon, while Olivia attended what she'd called a client presentation, I drove to Lakefront Residences. The complex was sleek and discreet, exactly the kind of place successful people used to hide the parts of their lives they didn't want photographed. I sat in the car for a long time, staring at the key, asking myself if I really wanted to know what door it opened. My question was answered when Ethan's Mercedes pulled in and parked a few spaces away. He stepped out with grocery bags and dry cleaning, moving with the ease of a man coming home. When he disappeared into Building C, I waited 10 minutes before following. The key slid perfectly into the lock of apartment 214. The door opened onto another world. It wasn't a hideaway, it was a home, a shared home. Pictures on the walls, wine glasses drying on the rack, her favorite throw pillows on a couch I'd never seen. And the photos. God, the photos. Olivia and Ethan at company events, laughing, touching, posing like a married couple. On a beach, her hand bare of her wedding ring, his arm wrapped around her waist. Every image was a small death. I walked through their space cataloging evidence, not out of rage but instinct. Her perfume on the dresser beside his cologne, 2 toothbrushes, a closet half filled with her clothes. the same silk blouse she'd worn on business trips. On the kitchen counter sat a folder labeled Future Plans in her handwriting. Inside, real estate listings in Ethan's name, travel brochures, and a printed business proposal for Astravian's next expansion, with Ethan Cole, CEO, and Olivia Morgan, president, at the top. And beneath it, a document from Hale and Associates Family Law, dated 2 months ago. She'd been consulting attorneys, planning the divorce I didn't even know existed. Her notes detailed everything: emotional abandonment, lifestyle incompatibility, lack of ambition. She'd turned my quiet evenings and steady love into ammunition. She'd been rewriting me into the villain of her next chapter. I sat on their couch, surrounded by proof of a life I never knew she was living. This wasn't infidelity. It was replacement. Ethan hadn't stolen my wife. They'd conspired to erase me. My phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. Running late again tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. I looked around the apartment, at the couch she probably sat on while sending those words, and finally understood. Betrayal doesn't destroy you all at once. It erases you one ordinary moment at a time, until there's nothing left of the life you thought was yours. That night, Olivia came home close to 11, apologizing for another late evening filled with client entertainment. She kissed my cheek, smiled, and asked about my day. The same rhythm, the same performance. Only now, I could see the script beneath every word. "How was the client dinner?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Productive," she said, slipping off her heels. "We're trying to close a major deal, and sometimes that means nurturing relationships outside office hours." She filled the kettle, moving around the kitchen with the calm efficiency of someone completely in control of the narrative. Ethan was there too, of course. He'll be managing the account if we land it. Of course he was. I wondered if later, in their apartment, they'd laugh about this very conversation, amused at how convincingly she played her part. "That's good," I said quietly. "You and Ethan make a strong team." She hesitated just long enough for me to see it, a flicker of warmth in her voice when she replied, "We do. He really understands the business." That tone, the tone that once belonged to me. "He's been instrumental in some of our biggest wins lately." I nodded, pretending to agree, while my mind was already working the math. How long until she filed? How much longer would I be her alibi before I became her liability? How many more nights would I fall asleep beside a stranger who was already gone? In bed later, her breathing was even and peaceful while I stared into the dark. The woman beside me could plan my erasure while resting her head on my shoulder, and I'd mistaken it for love. The truth was harder to swallow than rage. She hadn't changed overnight. She had evolved away from me, piece by piece, until the version I loved was just a ghost she kept around for convenience. The next morning, I chose not to wait any longer. Saturday. The house was quiet, sunlight bleeding through the kitchen windows. She sat at the table wearing the pale yellow robe I'd bought her 3 Christmases ago, scrolling through her phone and sipping coffee from the mug I'd given her on our 10th anniversary. A picture of domestic peace. "We need to talk," I said, setting the folder of evidence on the table between us. She glanced up, her expression calm, but her eyes sharpened when she saw the documents. For a moment, something passed over her face. Was it relief? "What's this about?" she asked, her voice too steady, too practiced. "I went to your apartment yesterday," I said evenly. "The one at Lakefront Residences." She froze, then placed her mug down carefully. "I used the key from the junk drawer." Silence stretched between us. When she finally spoke, her tone had changed. The mask was gone. "I see," she said simply. How much do you know? No denial, no confusion, just a calculated assessment of damage. Everything, I said. The apartment, Ethan, the divorce planning, the legal strategy, all of it. She nodded, tapping her nails lightly against the table. It was the sound she made in meetings when calculating her next move. How long have you known? Since Thursday, I replied. When I stopped by your office and the guard told me he saw your husband every day. He meant Ethan. Her lips curved into something almost like amusement. Marcus has always been too talkative. She took another sip of coffee, unhurried. I suppose this complicates things. I laughed bitterly. Complicates? Olivia, we've been married 28 years. You've been living with another man, plotting your exit, and all you can say is that this complicates things. She sighed, not in guilt, but irritation. Daniel, let's not be melodramatic. We both know this marriage ended a long time ago. We both know, I repeated, stunned. I didn't know. I thought we were happy. Her laugh was soft and humorless. Happy? Daniel, when was the last time we had a real conversation? When was the last time you asked about my work, my goals, anything beyond your little practice and your quiet evenings at home? I've always supported you, I said. I've always been proud of what you've accomplished. You've been complacent, she corrected. Content to let me carry the weight of everything, our finances, our future, our ambition. You've been satisfied with enough while I've been chasing what's next. Every word hit like a carefully placed knife. If you felt that way, why didn't you tell me? I did, she said calmly. You just didn't listen. Every time I mentioned travel or expansion, you dismissed it. You never wanted more. Daniel, you were content, and I wasn't. I stared at her, trying to connect the woman before me with the one who'd once promised forever. So, what? You decided to replace me instead of work with me? Her expression softened, not kindly, but condescendingly. I didn't plan it, she said. I met Ethan 3 years ago. He's ambitious, visionary, passionate about building something bigger than himself. At first, it was professional respect, then friendship, then more. When? I asked quietly. She tilted her head, thoughtful. 2 years ago. We just landed our first major international contract. We went out to celebrate. We talked until 3 a.m. about the future, about everything I'd been craving but could never find here. You came home that night, I said. You told me the client dinner ran late. It did, she said without a hint of shame. That was the night I realized what I'd been missing. Her voice softened, almost tender. Ethan listens. He gets excited about growth, about legacy. He sees me. And that justifies lying to me for 2 years? Her eyes hardened. I wasn't lying, Daniel. I was protecting you. You weren't ready to face that our marriage was already dead. You were living in the comfort of a story I'd already outgrown. Our marriage was dead because you decided it was, I said. Because you found someone who made you feel bigger. Because you stopped growing, she said simply. She stood, the morning light haloing her figure, her tone shifting from confession to conclusion. You're the same man at 58 that you were at 38, and I'm not the same woman. I watched her standing there in the light, and for the first time, I saw her clearly, not as the woman I loved, but as the stranger she'd become. While she'd been dreaming of bigger things, I'd been grateful for what we already had. So you and Ethan have been planning to get rid of me? I asked. Olivia turned toward me, her expression steady, professional, detached. We've been planning our future, she said smoothly. The divorce was inevitable, Daniel. We just wanted to manage it in a way that would be least disruptive for everyone involved. Least disruptive. I pulled the legal consultation summary from the folder and laid it on the table. You've been building a case against me for months. Emotional abandonment, lifestyle incompatibility, documenting everything I say or do so you can use it later. For the first time, she looked uneasy. The legal advice was to protect both of us. Divorce can get messy if people aren't prepared. Protect both of us? I said, trying not to laugh. You've been quietly dismantling my reputation, telling our friends and colleagues that I'm an inadequate husband, that I've somehow forced you into his arms, and you call that protection? Her tone sharpened. I've been honest about the state of our marriage. If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should think about why. The circular logic made me dizzy. She'd lied, cheated, and manipulated me, and somehow I was the one expected to examine my faults. Do you love him? I asked finally. Olivia's expression softened, though not with guilt. I do, she said simply. I love Ethan in a way I never loved you. He challenges me, inspires me. With him, I feel alive instead of safe. And with me? I asked. She looked at me for a long moment, neither cruel nor kind. With you, I felt comfortable. I thought that was enough for a long time. But it isn't. I need more than safe. I sat in silence, absorbing the weight of her words. 28 years of marriage, reduced to an analysis of comfort versus ambition. What I saw as love, she saw as limitation. What happens now? I asked quietly. Olivia exhaled, businesslike again. Now we handle this like adults. I was going to file for divorce next month anyway. This just speeds things up. Next month? I repeated, stunned. Ethan and I want to be married by Christmas, she said, as if discussing a corporate merger. We're planning a small ceremony, just family. She hesitated, realizing how that sounded, then added, I was hoping we could make this transition smooth for everyone. Everyone except me. Daniel, you'll be fine, she said, her tone patronizing. You have your work, your routines, your quiet life. You'll probably be happier without the pressure of trying to keep up with me. Even in betrayal, she positioned herself as the benevolent one, leaving me for my own good. I trusted you, I said quietly. I know you did, she replied. And I'm sorry it had to end like this. But we both deserve to be with people who understand us. You need someone who appreciates your steadiness, and I need someone who matches my drive. She'd rewritten infidelity as personal growth, betrayal as self-actualization. When do you want me to move out? I asked. She looked surprised. You don't have to leave right away. We can work out the details with the lawyers. I'm not heartless, Daniel. Not heartless, just ruthless, strategic, and capable of orchestrating my emotional and financial destruction while pretending to care. I'll contact an attorney on Monday, I said, standing. Daniel, she called after me as I reached the doorway. I turned, and for a moment she almost looked like the woman I once loved. I really am sorry, she said softly. I never wanted to hurt you. I studied her face, searching for any trace of real remorse. There was none. Only polite detachment, the mild regret of someone acknowledging collateral damage. No, I said quietly. You just wanted to replace me. The pain was just a side effect. As I walked upstairs, I heard her phone ringing. Her voice came alive in a way it hadn't been all morning, light, animated, intimate. She was calling him, telling him the truth was out, that their timeline could move faster, that the obstacle had been cleared. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the remnants of the life I thought I'd built. The woman downstairs wasn't the person I'd married, or maybe she always was, and I just hadn't wanted to see it. Either way, the man I was that morning, who still believed in his marriage, was gone. By Monday, I was in the office of Richard Hale, the same lawyer who'd helped us with our will 5 years earlier. The irony wasn't lost on me. Olivia had gone to his firm first to plan my removal. Now I was here to plan my defense. Daniel, Richard said, scanning the evidence I'd brought. This is one of the most calculated divorce strategies I've seen in 30 years. He flipped through the photos of the apartment, the financial documents, the legal memos she'd left behind. She's been building this for years. What are my options? I asked. Good news, he said. Her whole strategy relies on you being passive. You're not. The fact that you discovered this first gives us leverage. He tapped the papers. She's trying to paint you as emotionally unavailable and financially irresponsible. But we can prove the opposite. How? I asked. With facts. You've been faithful, supportive, and financially sound. And now we can prove her deceit. Even in a no-fault state, that still matters. For the next 2 hours, Richard laid out the plan. Her meticulous record of lies could be used against her. Her misuse of joint funds to maintain the apartment and affair could destroy her credibility in court. There's one more thing, I said, opening my own folder. I ran the numbers. Richard leaned in as I spread spreadsheets across his desk. While she's been documenting my supposed shortcomings, I've been funding her double life. She earns $200,000 a year, but our household expenses have been running about $60, $100 higher. My practice brings in $120,000. I've been contributing $80, $1,000 annually to our joint account, most of which she's used to pay for him. Richard studied the pages, his expression hardening. That's marital fraud. Daniel, she's been using your income to finance her affair. He looked up, his voice colder now. She wanted to destroy you quietly. Now she's given you everything you need to destroy her instead. While she'd been dreaming of building empires, I'd been content with the life we'd already built. So you and Ethan have been planning to get rid of me? I asked, my voice calm but hollow. Olivia turned toward me, her face composed, her tone clinical. We've been planning our future, she said. The divorce was always going to happen, but we wanted to manage it in a way that would be least disruptive for everyone. Least disruptive. I pulled a new folder from my briefcase and spread the pages across the table. You've been positioning Ethan to take over at Astravion, but the corporate filings show you've been doing it in ways that violate your fiduciary duty to the board. Richard, my lawyer, looked up sharply. Explain. Ethan was hired 3 years ago as COO, but Olivia has been quietly transferring responsibilities to him that require board approval. She's been grooming him to replace her as CEO while she steps back into a new role as president. None of it has been properly documented. I'd spent nights combing through public filings, comparing them with the documents I'd found in their apartment, their blueprint for a future that merged both business and pleasure. Their reorganization plan would need shareholder approval. None of it had been presented. She's effectively restructuring Astravian for personal gain, I said. The board doesn't know about their relationship, and they certainly don't know that she's using company resources to prop him up. Richard's pen scratched across his notepad. Daniel, this isn't just about your divorce anymore. If what you're saying is true, she's exposed herself to serious professional consequences. I nodded. I don't take pleasure in it. I loved her, but I can't ignore what she's done, to me or to the company she swore to protect. We file first, he said firmly. You take control of the narrative before she can spin it, and the board deserves to know what's been happening under their noses. That afternoon, for the first time in nearly 3 decades of marriage, I stopped protecting Olivia from herself. I called James Holloway, Astravian's board chairman, a man I'd met many times at corporate events. Daniel, he greeted warmly, unsuspecting. What can I do for you? I need to make you aware of some governance issues, I said carefully. It's complicated, but there are operational changes taking place that haven't been properly approved by the board. There was silence on the line. What kind of changes? He asked. For 20 minutes, I explained what I'd uncovered, sticking to facts and leaving my personal life out of it. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. Are you saying Olivia's been implementing major corporate restructuring without board authorization? I'm saying there's a serious disconnect between what's happening inside Astravian and what's being reported to you. And you're bringing this to me because I believe in transparency, I said. And because the board has a right to know what's being done in its name. When I hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, feeling a strange mix of grief and clarity. For years, I'd been the man who fixed her messes, made excuses, smoothed edges. Now, I was the one forcing accountability. That evening, Olivia came home later than usual, her face drawn tight. She dropped her bag on the counter. We need to talk, she said, voice cold. About what? About the call James Holloway made to me this afternoon. About the corporate review the board just decided to open. About the fact that my husband is apparently trying to ruin my career. I met her gaze steadily. I didn't ruin anything. I just reported facts that were already true. Don't play innocent with me, Daniel, she snapped. You knew what this would do. Yes, I said quietly. Just like you knew what you were doing when you spent 2 years dismantling my life. Her composure cracked. This is different. This affects my professional reputation. Your affair with Ethan affects that too, I said. The board deserves to know how much of the company's future you've been rewriting in secret to serve your relationship. She stared at me for a long time. For the first time since all this began, she looked uncertain. What do you want? She asked. I want you to stop pretending there are no consequences, I said. I want you to understand that I'm not disappearing just because it's convenient for you. She crossed her arms. The board review will pass. There's nothing illegal about operational restructuring. Maybe not, I said. But unauthorized restructuring that benefits your romantic partner, that's a scandal. And when they realize you hid your relationship with him, they'll see it for what it is, a breach of trust. I could see her processing the fallout, calculating every possible escape route. For once, she didn't have control. What's it going to take to make this go away? She asked. It's not going away, I said evenly. You set this in motion when you built your second life. Now you get to live with both. Her voice dropped. You're destroying everything I've worked for. No, I said. You destroyed it yourself. I just stopped helping you hide it." That night, while she made frantic phone calls behind closed doors, I sat alone downstairs and realized that something fundamental had shifted. For 28 years, I had adapted to her ambition, her temper, her endless need for control. Now, for the first time, she was the one forced to adapt to a world that no longer bent around her. It wasn't revenge, not really. It was clarity, the quiet kind that doesn't need applause. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my new apartment, pouring coffee for one. Sunlight spilled across the counter, clean and bright. The divorce had finalized 3 weeks earlier. Despite her fury, the evidence had turned everything in my favor. She'd settled quickly once her lawyers saw what I had. I kept the house. She kept what was left of her savings after paying for the apartment she'd shared with him. It was fair, but fairness wasn't what satisfied me. What did was watching the illusion finally collapse. The board's audit had exposed everything: unauthorized deals, conflicts of interest, the affair she'd tried to bury under strategic partnerships. Ethan was dismissed. Olivia resigned quietly, her name already replaced on the glass doors she'd once walked through like a queen. I didn't celebrate. I just breathed, deeply, freely, for the first time in years. Love hadn't ended me. It had taught me when to stop participating in my own undoing. Ethan's position at Astravian had depended entirely on the integrity of his professional judgment. His affair with the CEO obliterated that foundation, creating a conflict of interest so undeniable that even Olivia couldn't shield him. He was dismissed quietly, his once promising career reduced to a cautionary tale whispered in corporate corridors. Olivia, however, survived, but barely. The board placed her on probation. Her decision-making powers were stripped. She now reported to a newly appointed chief operating officer who oversaw every decision she made. The woman who had built her identity on authority, control, and self-sufficiency was now monitored like an intern. Their lakefront apartment was vacated discreetly. Ethan left Chicago for Denver, taking a lower-paying role at a small consulting firm. Olivia moved into a modest one-bedroom near Astravian's headquarters, a sharp downgrade from the sleek penthouse she once called home. I learned about these updates not through her, but through the slow river of professional gossip that runs through every city. Old colleagues and acquaintances, once distant, began reaching out again. Some offered polite sympathy, others, quiet apologies for having believed her version of the story. I had no idea. One of her former associates told me when we bumped into each other at a cafe. She made it sound mutual. No one knew about Ethan. Their shock validated what I had always suspected, that Olivia's ability to manipulate truth was not confined to our marriage. She had rewritten reality so well that even her peers had applauded her reinvention. But the most meaningful transformation wasn't hers. It was mine. For the first time in decades, I lived without the shadow of someone else's discontent. I hadn't realized how much of my peace had been spent cushioning her ego, anticipating her moods, repairing damage she'd never admit to causing. My apartment was smaller than our house, yet it felt enormous. I could read late without her sighing over the glow of the lamp. I could cook for one and feel full, not lonely, just content. I could sit in silence and know it wasn't judgment, just quiet. I had reclaimed simplicity, and with it, myself. Against all odds, I'd even started seeing someone. Her name was Margaret, a widow I met at the community library. She loved poetry, conversation, and stillness. She laughed softly, listened fully, and never once made me feel that being steady meant being small. After years of feeling like I had to perform to be worthy of love, her acceptance felt revolutionary. Ironically, Olivia had been right about one thing. We had grown incompatible. But not because I was stagnant, because she had outgrown the need for sincerity. While she was busy redefining betrayal as ambition, I was rediscovering the quiet strength of being honest. Her version of growth required deception. Mine required boundaries. Late one spring evening, I was sitting on my balcony watching the sunset when my phone rang. Her name flashed across the screen. The first time she'd called since the divorce was finalized. I almost ignored it. But curiosity, that old ghost, got the better of me. Olivia, Daniel. Her voice was subdued, stripped of its usual authority. I hope I'm not interrupting. What do you need? A pause. I wanted to apologize for everything, for how I handled it. I said nothing. She continued, "You didn't deserve what I put you through. I kept telling myself our marriage was already over, but that was just an excuse. The truth is, I ended it long before I admitted it, to you or to myself." "What brought this on?" I asked. She gave a bitter laugh. "Losing everything I thought I wanted. Ethan and I lasted 6 weeks after Denver. Turns out, what we had was more about adrenaline than affection." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said truthfully. "Are you?" she asked, almost softly. I thought about it. "Yes. I'm sorry you destroyed so much for something that wasn't real. I'm sorry you learned too late that what we had actually mattered. Do you ever think about what could have happened if I'd just been honest?" she asked. "Sometimes," I admitted. "But honesty wasn't the problem. Olivia, you wanted more. That's human. But instead of confronting it, you built an illusion and invited me to live inside it." "You're right," she said after a long silence. "Even now, I'm making this about me." "Yes," I said quietly. "You are?" Another pause. Then, "I hope you're happy, Daniel. I hope you found someone who appreciates what I didn't." "I have," I said simply. "Her name's Margaret." "Good," she whispered. "You deserve that." When the call ended, I sat on the balcony until the sky faded to gray, the last light dissolving into stillness. A year ago, I'd been living a lie without knowing it, married to someone who was actively erasing me from her life. Now, I was alone, but not lonely. My heart was lighter, my peace earned. I'd learned that contentment isn't complacency. It's the quiet courage to stay true to yourself, even when someone else stops seeing your worth. Olivia once saw my calm as weakness. Margaret saw it as strength. The difference wasn't in me. It was in who was willing to understand me. As I turned off the lights that night, I realized something the old Daniel never would have believed. Sometimes losing everything you thought you needed is how you finally find what you were meant to have. Sometimes freedom doesn't roar. It exhales. I would love to hear your opinion, so please share it with me in the comments. I'm always curious about what you all think, and also write me where you heard this story. For more life stories like this, like the video and subscribe to my channel. There are many other stories waiting for you. With heartfelt greetings. Until next time.